What's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you so much for being here. This is Silver Slayer. Folks, just going to warn you right now, this is an extremely heavy, disturbing video. I'm not saying that lightly. If you're someone who's already a little shaken up or antsy or just, emotionally not there, you might want to watch this video at a later time. Panic selling is real. I don't want to spread fear, uncertainty, doubt, but I do want this information to get out. I'm not someone who's going to paint the world as rainbows and unicorns if that is not the case, because then that's giving you a misleading perspective on things, which I don't want you to have. I want to be transparent. This is silver stacking, right? We are investing into something because we know the corrupt financial system. So I'm sure to some extent you already know about all this. It's not like someone just blindly jumps into this video. And if this is one of your first takes into, why we're investing, or maybe, the corrupt financial system, just a warning, things are as bad as they feel. And that's what the question is. The bad vibes economy. Is the economy actually that bad, or does everyone just feel like it is? And I could probably guess that a lot of the people that want to trust the government think people are kind of just over exaggerating, the preppers and the people that I guess talk about SHTF, or that do invest in the precious metals, or any of that type of stuff. They try to just overplay it, or I guess undermine it. But what if I were to tell you that it's actually much worse than I'm sure a lot of us even know? The people that even do do prepare for this stuff and do talk about it on a daily basis. I mean, we are 30 something trillion dollars in debt. The dollar's lost 98% of its purchasing power. We are in a recession now. I mean, not to put it lightly. I mean, it's not an if. I'm pretty sure we are at this point, and things are just going to keep getting worse. And I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you all to understand why precious metals is so important to have. Protect yourself. So the link to this article will be in the description. I'm going to put timestamps on every single topic we talk about. So if you want to jump around or see something that piques your interest, you can do so. Let's jump into this. Elon Musk recently told Tesla executives he has a super bad feeling about the economy. So he wants to pause hiring and cut the company's workforce. This is perhaps not the best way to run a business, but it is indicative of the current mood. A lot of people have had a sense that something's just off in the economy, or it's about to be. There's this nagging sentiment that we're in a precarious spot and that there's some economic boogeyman lurking just around the corner. And it's almost not even a myth anymore. I mean, even federal chairman Jerome Powell in an FOMC meeting mentioned that he does see a day where something will coexist and possibly even replace the dollar. For the Federal Reserve to announce that publicly, that speaks for itself. This sense of dread is so pervasive that it might surprise you to hear that many aspects of the US economy are generally in good shape right now. The unemployment rate is low, and the labor market is strong. Job openings are at near record levels, and many workers who want to find something better are doing so. Household and corporate balance sheets are strong. Business profit margins are coming down, some, but not all, are disastrous. The market, or the stock market at least, is faltering, but the worst trouble seemed to be the concentrated, high-flying tech sector that was bound to cool off a bit. Stock market investors are still much wealthier than they were 5, 10 years ago. Now, that's not the problem, though, right? And that's not the problem, right? They can cover that stuff up, but we're talking about the behind-the-scenes stuff, right? The elephant in the room is, of course, inflation, which is high and, for most consumers, just incredibly annoying. Rising prices are cutting into wage gains for workers. The average price of gas nationally was $4.91 as of June 7th, climbing just as many Americans get ready to hit the road for summer. Everything else is going swimmingly, but the inflation is painfully high. People can't get around that psychologically, Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, said. And that's to add inflation over 2 years of a situation globally, war in Ukraine, mass shootings, political dysfunction. It makes it hard to say how you feel good about anything, including the economy. It's just a noxious brew that's come together and is weighing very heavily on the collective psyche at this point. Now, I definitely think that is still undermining it to a very high degree. The Federal Reserve is tightening monetary policy to try to combat inflation, which could push the economy into a recession. Regardless, the breakneck pace of the recovery from the pandemic recession is slowing down. The economy isn't terrible, but a combination of factors makes it feel like it is, and that's only going to get worse, even though that's not all a foregone conclusion. Now, I still think that every one of these situations they kind of throw out there and say, well, I still think it's much worse. And none of us know how bad it is. They're not going to obviously tell the truth. And if we already know that there is a major problem at line, then we know that they're going to try to cover it up to make it seem better than it, obviously is. How bad are things? Well, it's pretty scaring that the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. Every country across the globe relies on the dollar's strength, but this global situation definitely exposed how broke America is, and hence why a lot of countries are pulling out of the USD, going strictly to crypto. I mean, there's so many cashless nations nowadays, and I just don't see things staying the way they are for too much longer without there being a reset. I mean, it even says right here, inflation is not fun. The U.S. levels the country hasn't seen it in decades, and people frankly hate it. A recent poll from 538 found that over half of the country says inflation is the most important issue facing the country, well ahead of the issues such as political extremism, gun violence, climate change. Pew found that 70% of Americans say inflation is a very big problem, with no other issue coming very close. And that's where there's such a gray area, because you would have some people saying that the political stuff going on right now is the most important. Some other people saying climate change. Some people saying, inflation. Some other people saying, some new law or regulation or something. And all of it together, especially with the way social media is and already how emotional and vulnerable people are because of the last couple of years, what's going on is just it's a perfect mixing pot, a perfect melting pot for just craziness. And you can see why people are making such irrational decisions with their money. I mean, it only makes sense. Inflation can be really painful for consumers, especially on items such as food and gas that can't really skip buying. It's also uh, always staring them in the face in a way other situations in the economy are not, or at least not so obviously. And a lot of people are going to push that out of sight, out of mind agenda as well. And that's almost what the government's doing as well. Even back 2020, throwing out a $700 stimulus check to everyone. We didn't have $700 to pass out, but if candidate A, B, or C wanted to win that election, they better throw out that $1 trillion stimulus word. And have you gotten a raise over the past year? Many people have. It was likely a one-time thing. It's not like every week your boss is like, hey, we gave you another raise. With inflation, it's a constant creep. So anyways, gas prices in particular are almost unavoidable, even if you're not filling up your tank. How many goods and services do we have where the price is prominently displayed on large signs? So the inflation issue weighs heavily on how people perceive everything else to be going on. And that's the scariest part about the dollar. It's only as strong as people think it is. So if people think the dollar isn't strong, it literally isn't strong, since it's backed by nothing. We got rid of the gold standard in 1971, got rid of the silver standard basically a century earlier, almost to the dot, and our money isn't backed by anything now. The way people say they feel about the economy doesn't necessarily align with how you might expect them to if the country were in a dire economic situation. That's a good point. Consumers are still spending, though more appear to be dipping into their savings to do so. It's not clear if they're taking home less due to inflation, but in late 2021, a survey from the Fed found that Americans were reporting the highest levels of financial well being since the survey began in 2013. Even though their perceptions of the broader economy declined, The Atlantic's Derek Thompson recently named the scenario sort of a everything is terrible but I'm fine situation, which I could see. I mean, there's so many other things going on. It kind of puts into perspective what's really important and what's not. I mean, when you're living in a time like this. But anyways, the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index in May fell to its lowest level since August of 2011, driven down by how consumers feel about conditions for buying houses and durable goods and their outlook about the future of the economy because of inflation. We're at levels that would be consistent with bigger recessions. And that's from a former economist from the Federal Reserve. There's no way, given the labor market, given consumer spending, that right now we're in a recession. And I don't agree with that. And when was this article written, though? This article was written June 8th. So, only about a month ago. Things have gotten a lot worse in a month, but I still think they're downplaying it. What do you think? Sam pointed out that last time consumer sentiment was so low, the US was in the midst of a debt ceiling crisis and still climbing out of the Great Recession. And there was turmoil in Europe. Essentially, a lot of things were bad. Now we're in a similar scenario. People feel bad about a lot of things, which translates into how they're feeling about the economy. Consumers are just really mad about the world. And there's still the global situation. There's again turmoil in Europe. There's growing anger over politics. Practically no one says they're happy about the direction of the country. When we think about the world, the economy, it's not so separable. A recession isn't for sure looming, but it feels like it. And who said that though? In early June, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, the most corrupt man in the world, well, J.P. Morgan is, but Jamie Dimon also has. I mean, when I think of Jamie Dimon, I just think of back in 2017 or maybe 2018 now. I forget, it was a while ago. But when he came out on, and this was when Bitcoin was booming, he came out and said, Bitcoin is a scam. Bitcoin is a scam, and came out publicly, stated it everywhere. And it shot the price of Bitcoin down thousands of dollars because everyone was panicking when he said that. And it was kind of like a domino effect, right? And right after that, maybe a day or two later, JP Morgan was caught buying millions and millions of dollars of Bitcoin. And that's because the blockchain stores every transaction publicly, right? The blockchain is all public information. That's why I one of the reasons I like it, because banks can't do shady stuff behind the scenes. But it's just funny, right? He said that on purpose because he knew that would push Bitcoin down so they can get it for a better price. But I mean, that's just that little situation. The more serious stuff is the price manipulation in the on the COMEX with silver. But anyways, Jamie Dimon warned an economic hurricane is on the horizon, citing the Fed shrinking its balance sheet and the war's impact on commodity prices is in his reasoning right now kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. Everyone thinks the Fed can handle this, he said. That hurricane is right out there, down the road, coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or a superstorm Sandy. Like Musk's super bad feeling, Diamond is tapping into the current mood. Many consumers, economists, investors think there could be a recession on the horizon. In May, a Bloomberg survey of economists found there's a 30% probability of a recession over the next year. Many of the stock market's recent troubles can be tied back to recession fears and concerns that the Fed, in its attempts to fight inflation, will cause the economy to falter. Markets went from being like, oh yeah, soft landing, oh yeah, the Fed's got this, to oh my. And I mean, yeah, I feel like silver stackers though, we never were like, oh yeah, the Fed's got this. Were you? I never once had faith that things would get better. And maybe they would for like, I could see that and believe it for like a 2-3 month time frame. But we all know the same looping effect gets better a little bit, recovers, and then it drops. It's never just going to get better. You're never going to see the $30 trillion of debt start to go down to $28 trillion. It's only going to get worse. The dollar's not going to go from 98% of its purchasing power being lost down to 97. It's going to go to 99, right? I mean, that's common sense. A lot of people, I think, almost don't want to believe the inevitable because I guess that would strip away their sense of safety. I know there's a lot of psychology that has to do with investing, but I think true silver stackers understand it better than most do. Anyway, Zandy still thinks there's a possibility of dodging a recession in the near term. We need a little bit of luck on this situation and the invasion and some deft policymaking by the Fed, he said. Whether or not a recession does hit, the economy is in a moment of transition. The recovery from this recession was super fast and it's going to slow down. We're going through a very volatile period. And you see, these are all theories and opinions. Take these with a half a grain of sand on the world's biggest beach because there's so many different opinions, but the one thing that nobody incorporates is the unknown variables. The unknown variables are the most influential factors and the ones that nobody can can try to incorporate because they don't know what it is, and that's always why forecasts and predictions are so off. And that's terrible because speculation is probably the second biggest influencer. So if people are throwing out theories that are way off, scaring people, then the perception of that already just random guess opinion from one person will influence the actual price because those people believe it as true and then they invest off of their own opinion. So the markets are just moving in this circle of just emotions, and when emotions are high and people are looking negatively at the markets, you can see why things can go haywire so fast. But anyways, as Diamond, or Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan's comments note, the hurricane on the horizon may not be as broadly devastating as recent history might make you think. A potential 2022-2023 recession won't look like 2008 or 2020. It could be more of a garden variety recession, one more people better poised to navigate. Though, of course, some groups are much better to set up to navigate downturns than others. I wonder who those groups are. Then they go into the 2008 recession, which it's pretty similar to nowadays. I mean, what happened in 2020, like 2008 credit financial crisis, recession slash depression. 3 years later, $50 silver, right? You had $1 billion stimulus back then. Nowadays, you could say recession slash depression, credit financial crisis, $1 trillion stimulus. But we haven't seen that the record-breaking high like that period did. Now, it took 3 years back then, but there also wasn't, the factors are a lot different, but just generalizing the situation, there's a lot of similarities. The black unemployment rate consistently runs higher than white unemployment rate in good times, and bad households with higher incomes, higher savings are often more adept to weathering a storm than low-income people without savings. I mean, that's pretty obvious, and that's why we put our money into something that holds its value. Jones also pointed out that if a recession does hit, the federal government will likely not come to the rescue in the way it did during the global situations recession. And this is actually a good point. So workers might be instinctually aware that if they lose their jobs, extra unemployment benefits aren't coming. So if we have a slowdown in unemployment and it gets harder to find jobs, is that going to come back again? In the presence of the inflation that we have, Jones said, and I don't think it would, and I don't think it would be good too. That would that, I mean, imagine trying to give out even more money, more trillions of dollars after what we already did, and what that would do. Like I said, get a quick paycheck, but at what cost? That money has to come from somewhere. You're going to pay it back sooner or later, right? It's not like you just get it for free. You're going to pay for it, just maybe not immediately. So anyways, there's a lot here. There's a lot here. So I like this. It just seems like nothing in the world will ever be better. It's impossible to tell anyone how to feel about the economy or about anything really. And the way we feel about the economy isn't always logical. That's really important to take note of. The White House would probably be very much like, or the White House would probably very much like to beat the drum that actually things are not that bad. But if suddenly it costs you double or triple what it used to fill up your gas tank, it's not a message that resonates. And I feel like, yeah, they just throw out these statements, just kind of writing blank checks and just hoping people for that period of time will be okay with it, and we'll just deal about or worry about the legitimacy of what we said later. They're almost just like running on fumes, just trying to put up a mask, and the mask is getting revealed. And it's a mask that we saw years ago. I mean, it's Halloween all around us for silver stackers. A lot of people, though, maybe this is new, and I could imagine how scary it would be. Imagine, you know, like for real. I mean, we're used to this. We talk about this daily. Even if there wasn't a global situation, I would be sitting here making a video about silver right now, telling you why. But imagine someone, this is their first time reading an article like this, or just now kind of looking into our situation. I can't imagine, especially just getting out of the 2, 3 years we just had to face. It would be a lot, probably too much to take in. And that's also why I try to make a lot of videos letting people know that, hey, there is an alternative though. Maybe there's no solution, but at least you can preserve your money in some way, shape, or form. So, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. This was a pretty long one. I know that there's a lot talked about. I didn't try to stay on every topic too long just because I wanted to get through the whole thing, mostly. So if you want to check it out, the link will be in the description. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think we are in a recession now? Let me know. I want to take a second to give a shout out to my channel sponsor, BullionMax.com. I'm honored to be working with one of the best bullion dealers online. Great prices, great deals, and by far the best packaging out of any company that I've ever seen. They even offer a silver starter kit, which is 5 ounces of silver at below employee pricing, with extremely high premium coins for a great deal. It's only one per household, but a great way to lower your dollar per ounce average a bit and get a chance to grab some great coins. So shout out to Bullion Max, such a great company, always sending me silver to give away to my subscribers as well. BullionMax.com, and if you want the starter kit, go to BullionMax.com/SilverSlayer. And also make sure to go to AG47Apparel.com if you want to express your love for precious metals with the clothes on your back. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.